Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 7 of Supercoach Swordplay. A very special episode this week. We are joined by none other than Supercoach Jords. Welcome to the channel, mate. This isn't the first time we've all had a chat. We had one last year in the COVID year, but yeah, we decided it's that time of the year where there's not a whole lot going on, so we thought a little bit of banter between us three blokes would be quite appropriate. How are you this week, mate? What's going on? Welcome to the Swordplay podcast.
Thanks, Phils. How are you, boys? Yeah, doing well. We just got out of lockdown in Adelaide, so back to sort of normal again. Couldn't breathe all day in our dodgy masks, but that's okay. But yeah, didn't have the best week. My week went about as well as Phil's internet this week, with all my forward line injuries, so all COVID out. So yeah, 24-47. So not bad. Got saved by Jack McRae, captain, but. Ranked 1,122. So hopefully get in the top 1K. So I guess it's an okay week, but could have been better if I had players playing. But not too bad.
Unreal stuff, mate. And how are you this week, DR? What's going on? What did you score? I know you had a bloody great score because, in fact, it was only 7 points more than myself.
Yeah, mate, we'll manage to get 25-14 this week. So average, I think it was a little bit above par. Look, I didn't cop any major injuries, had Rowan out like many people. But apart from Rowan, had 21 premiums playing, had Madden on field this week who punched out about a 60. So not a disaster there. But what am I now in the ranks? 233 overall. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get inside the top 200. But the issue is now, with no trades left, you can't make any more moves. So it's basically up to the Supercoach gods now. Be kind, keep my premiums on field, and hopefully we can keep pushing up a little bit. But how about yourself, Johnny? You said you were just behind, mate. How'd you score this week?
Yeah, I went 2,507, which was like surprisingly a top 2% score. One of my best all year. I had an absolute shocker. I jumped nearly 1,000 spots in the ranks overall, which I really needed. I went 983 spots, which was, super handy. Back in the top 3%. I slid down to the top 4 after last week's howler. I butchered the captaincy. And I've been shocking in the leagues, mate, but I got 7 out of 7 this week, which is really handy. But unfortunately, I did fall short in the cash league, and that's always going to be a little bit of a setback, mate. I'm still a bit flat about that.
Look, what could you? Pretty tough competition, some of these leagues this year. I know your league's Spiller Supercoach. That's what's it, around the 40 mark or something around that, mate. So
exactly.
You're in pretty strong league, so it's tough to get a victory these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I was lucky. To get a win in that league. I was surprised. So I'll take the 100% league wins for sure. We got our headlines for this week. So Jords is obviously a new inclusion of these segments. So. He'll be updated, but I'll start with you, DR. What is your headline for this week?
Well, this week, mate, my headline is "The Grass is Greener." So for those people, I know Jords is a Toby Green owner. This is good news. The man is back this week, along with Callum Mills and one of my players, Rowan Marshall. So for those coaches who have managed to hold on to those couple of blokes, you'll be rapt to see them back on field this week. So the grass is greener going into this week, mate.
100%, mate. That's a good one. I had Spills is the Essendon of Supercoach, referring to my very ordinary finals performance. I always compete when I don't need to, and despite such a great week, over the weekend, I still managed to fall short. I think I was 9th or 10th in the $20 cash league. So I just mentioned that, but yeah, that's something a bit flat about. And if I was going to win any league, it would be that one, but obviously, you two are in that league, so that's going to be quite a tough ask, especially yourself, DR, because I've looked in all the other leagues that we're in together, and you're quite comfortably right up there on the top. What do you have to say for yourself? Because that is just, unbelievable by how good you've been this year.
Pure luck, mate. Pure luck playing the right teams on the right week, I think, because...
You're selling yourself short, mate. You're a guru.
Look. So a couple of leagues. I mean, I'm in the league with M, Supercoach Mama. Chizo's going really well this year. Arthur, black on white. I think he's still in the top 10. So when you're playing against other coaches like that and still somehow managing to get in the top 1 or 2, you know that a little bit of luck is playing on your side, I think, mate. But look, I'll take it. Hopefully, I can manage to actually do something, get in a couple of grand finals, and fingers crossed, maybe take out a cashy or two, mate.
I'm sure you'll have no dramas whatsoever with that, mate. Jords, what is your headline for this week? Your first ever headline of the Supercoach Swordplay?
For me this week, it's going into this week, no longer Gawn with the wind, because Gawn, it looks like he's back. You said before, nearly 60 hitouts he had this week, Gawn with a bit more CBA. So I think it suggests that they were just making sure Gawn was priming himself for this part of the season. That's what it seems like anyway. So he's rocking against Chris Burgess, I assume, or Zach Smith. Probably not Zach Smith.
Nah, he's gone. He's dead.
Bloody Smith. Anyway. But yeah, Gawn with the wind. Obviously we have we'll speak about captains after, but we got the Dogs boys in Ballarat against the Crows. I think all Bont and McRae has been waiting for this one. So, but Gawn is, if that doesn't work out, Gawn captain against Burgess with more CBAs, it seems. It could be a nice pod option. So something I'll definitely probably look at if McRae doesn't go too well.
I don't mind that. And like, he had such a good week last week in terms of like stats, but he's still, I don't think he went 130, maybe just sub 130. So maybe if you like hit outs to disadvantage where the opposition was sharking it, which was a bit concerning. But yeah, it looks like Luke Jackson's getting a bit tired. I watched Footy Classified the other night, and they were saying how like he and Cozzy and a couple of other blokes just aren't having that impact, and how's that going to affect him come deep into finals. So maybe those guys need a spell for now, and then hopefully they're right by the finals. So that would be more than ideal. And on that itself, it seems like Gawn's going to get a little bit more of a run in the ruck, you would think. So yeah, I don't mind that one. That's a great headline by yourself and a great start to the podcast. I'm sure there's more to come. It is time for DR's Rants. This is a segment where myself and now Jords are just going to sit back, enjoy the ride, and listen to whatever it is the great Supercoach DR has to say. And we're always eager to listen. What do you got for us this week?
Oh, look, mate, this week my rant is all about rookie coverage, or my lack of rookie coverage. Look, don't get me wrong, I've got a few blokes down there. So I've got Bianco, I've got Madden, and I've got Poulter. So, it's okay coverage. You'd assume that they'd play most weeks. But I want to have a bit of a ramble about Bramble, mate. His 3-round average, is a 98. I'm sitting here with Travis Boak, whose 3-round average is a 96. So Bramble is averaging more than bloody Boak, who I traded in for Brayshaw. Such a silly, silly trade. Jeremy Sharp, 3-round average of 89. That's just below Boakey as well. And the other man is Jords, man. And what do you call him, Spills? I think it's the wish version of Dusty. Matty Parker, a heap of CBAs over the weekend. All of a sudden looks like he's one of their main midfielders. So the fact that I don't own either Parker, Sharp, or Bramble is really killing me at the moment, because if I do cop a couple of injuries with no trades, and these are the blokes that I'm relying on, your Bianco, Poulter types, Madden types, maybe Briggs when he comes back. I just don't have one of those better rookies as coverage to rely on. So, yeah, that's my rant this week, mate. I'm really jealous of Bramble owners, because I know that some people are even looking to loop him at the moment in the midfield with the way some of these supposed primos are going. So, yeah, really unfortunate, mate. I'm not an owner. Jords, I know that you own Matty Parker, mate. Are you a Bramble owner as well? Have you hit the jackpot there?
I have fielded Bramble 3 weeks in a row. Sorry to say that to you, but I actually looped him 1 week with Dusty when he got injured as well. So I got his 120. I got his before, and I scored this one. So to say it's bailed me out was an understatement. So, and now I have Shea Bolton at M8. So I think Bramble's my M8 now. And
that's it.
Bolton can stay at M9. I don't know. We'll see.
So do you think that's a realistic option as well, Jords, at the moment, to be looping someone like a Bramble and a Bolton if he's sitting at your M8 currently?
Well, I must be the only one in this position, but yeah, I think so. I mean, I trust Bramble. The role's a bit more consistent with Bramble. Shea's a bit more it's like a stylish player. So like he'll kick the goals. Even when the team wasn't going well, he was still doing a few things, but I'm not sure what his mid-time was. Seems like he rotated with Parker, I think. So I don't really trust Shea, but at least the fixture opens up. I think I'd probably have to field Shea. I mean, Bramble's not going to average 90-something for the rest of the year. Considering his VFL numbers early in the year, I don't think it even would have been 90 average. So, yeah, it's just a little bit lucky. Obviously gets a few free points from kickouts as well, Bramble. So yeah, if you can DPP somehow and loop him with a Shea Bolton or something like that, I would definitely do that. But I think I'll just roll with Shea this week and then probably split the dummy when he gives me another 40 and put Bramble on for the rest of the year. But we'll see.
Good advice, mate. Good advice.
It was huge, Bramble. One that I missed out on. I went Newcombe over Bramble, which was, just absolutely not the right call at all. And that's great bench coverage. And I've got Bolton too. So, like, your biggest problem's looping Bolton with Bramble, but I might have to loop Bolton with Ollie Henry, mate, because he's my bench cover and he's been pretty solid. A couple of 60s in a row. So, yeah, that's not out of the realms of possibility that I do that because Shea Bolton's been completely underwhelming. And I think Richmond, maybe a couple of weeks ago, they were just having a rough patch, but at this point in time, I think they've officially had it. So how does that affect Shea Bolton and his scoring? I'm not sure, but I'm not expecting anything over 80 for the next couple of weeks. I know it's a big call, but yeah, I'm not very optimistic about this pick. I got him in because I was about, 10 grand short of Tommy Hawkins. So yeah, that's a bit of a setback, but we'll move on from that. We got our Supercoaches Who segment on now. This is one of my favourites where we'll state something that a super coach has done that we agree or disagree with. I'll throw it on to DR because I know he's got a couple of good ones in the bag and you can kick us off, mate.
Well, first one is I've got, mate, is Supercoaches Who captained Sammy Walsh last week. I know and I couldn't believe this, that there were some people that couldn't even use any loops this week because they had so many of their rookies actually playing. I couldn't believe that. I didn't think there was any teams like this. So there are actually some teams that had to actually make the outright captaincy decision this week. And I thought Walsh was an absolute no-brainer. I had him as my vice captain and just didn't think that I'd need to use my captain this week. I thought it was a 140-plus score incoming, was looking all right at the start of the game, but just tapered off a little bit. So really unfortunate for those people that did. And I ended up going Jack McRae, luckily. So I think that was about a 65-point bonus or something similar to that. So if you captained Sammy Walsh last week, bad luck, but don't give up hope. I think that young man will bounce back in a big way.
No, he's a superstar. My first Supercoaches Who held Lockie Whitfield when all hope was lost. He responded, and I think he was scaled down. A matter of fact, I saw him over 150. He only come home with 146, and we're still going to take that every day of the week. So, yeah, massive sigh of relief there. But I agree with Jords in this situation. And, yeah, no more GWS players ever again, I don't think. So, yeah. Yeah, thanks, Lockie. But, yeah, it's just not good enough for what he's given me so far. Jords, what is your first Coaches Who? I think you've got a couple written down yourself, don't you?
Yeah. I actually just made one up. Mine was on Shea Bolton, but we've spoken enough on him. But super coaches who don't own Marcus Bontempelli, we need to stay strong this week. What's that quote? Tough time never lasts. Only tough people last. It's only 1 week he plays the Crows. He's gone 200 twice on us, I think. There is a bit of talk Schoenberg might tag him like he did to Parrish. I can only hope because we don't have a matchup for him unless Schoenberg can go with him. So it's going to be wet. It's in Ballarat. It's against the Crows who leak 150 points to mids every week. It's only 1 week. We'll get through this to those who don't have Bont.
Do you know what he scored last year when he played Adelaide?
I'm pretty sure it was 199. I remember.
He scored.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's huge. Are you the only two that don't have him? Because I own him, but you guys don't. And you still rank higher than I am. That's embarrassing. I don't know what's going on there, but I remember I captained him against North and he went 70. I don't know how he did, but you guys have been wrapped with that one.
Oh, well, mate, one bad game in how many? He's been a little bit down lately. You know, last week he bounced back, but I'm with Jords. It's been an absolute killer. And just to bring this bloke in, it's near and impossible. What do you have in the bank, Spills? About 350K. You know, when you brought him in, it's just so hard to bring these blokes in. And yeah, we'll talk about our lessons later on the year, but that's one lesson that I've learnt this year. I'm not going to skimp in the midfield, but probably another conversation anyway, I think, mate.
Yeah, 100%. What's your next one, DR? Your next super coaches who?
Yeah, my next super coaches who is super coaches who are now in the club. Now, sometimes it's great to be involved in clubs, involved in local footy club, the basketball club. We have clubs at school, the reading club, the Pokemon club, the drawing club. But this week, I think the three of us are all members of a new club, and it's the No Bloody Trades Club. It's not a great feeling. It's not a club that you want to be involved in or have a membership. But unfortunately, it's that time of the year. And unfortunately, being in this club is not a good thing. So I'd love an extra trade or two up my sleeve, but went a little bit hard this week. So for anyone that is in the club, welcome. Fingers crossed that we get no more injuries for the rest of the year.
100%, mate. This next one is for Jords, but super coaches who dream of Heaney. This is one of my favourite ones because I dream of him most nights. And fortunately, no nightmares, not yet anyway. It's only a matter of time before I turn over and I see something I don't want to see. But I know Jords has had his fair share of nightmares in the I Dream of Heaney saga. Maybe you'd like to vent your emotions and talk about that, mate?
I've said enough on Isaac.
I think
he's doing very well at the moment.
No comment.
So enjoy it while you can. That's my advice.
Yeah,
I got lucky. I've got a question. Do you still have the egg? Have you still got the egg around?
Yeah, I've got the
you do. Egg. Oh man,
this is a good luck egg for Heaney, and as soon as this leaves my room, he's gonna go to shit. So I'm not giving this back to my landlord until the season's over. I don't know if she's messaged me looking for it. Like, where's my bloody egg, mate? I said you could borrow it, but. Nah, look, I'm going to hold this as long as I can for now because I might need it. Because, Heaney, 5 goals, probably mark of the year almost. But, it's only a matter of time before that mark of the year contender turns into a 6-week ankle injury. But that hasn't happened yet. So, we're pretty happy getting him into the 350K. And I think he's got a 3-round average of 110. So, really nice. Jords, what's your next Supercoaches who, if you've got one?
This is from quite a while ago, and one that I'll remember forever, but Supercoaches who traded one Jimmy Jordan, who could really do with an extra trade and an extra 200K right now. So that my MA isn't Shea Bolton or, had to pick Hall and May. They've been really good, mostly Hall, but, constantly going for cheaper players because of this trade. So this is when you really feel it, and over the next 4 weeks when you have your cheap players aren't cutting it against what everyone else has at M8 or D6 and whatnot. So so shout out to everyone who traded James Jordan. Let's hold our rookies next year, I reckon. We'll see how we go.
I hope so, mate. Like, just on that, how much was he when you traded him?
200.
Oh, that stings, mate. Oh, that's a shocker. I got rid of him. I think he was nearly 350K. He had a break even of 70. So I was it's probably just about time to go, 70 or 80. But he just didn't stop. He just kept going. I think he nearly got to 400K. I don't know. I never looked. I didn't want to look because I was too ashamed of it. But
you were ashamed of it.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a big call. But it did get me bonked, so I shouldn't be too salty about it. But he was like the best rookie this year by far, I reckon. So you definitely wanted to hold him. So Jords, it's a new year next year and one that you can chuck in your lessons learned for 2021, I suppose, mate. Do you have another one, DR, another Supercoaches who? Or is
all good for Supercoaches who, mate? All done.
All right, we'll move on to the segment in which myself and DR disagree with something on. And this week we are going to be locking horns on one John DeGoey, which was the very unpredictable player that you traded into your side last week. I think I speak for many when I say that none of us saw that one coming. I would much prefer Tommy Hawkins, I reckon, mate. Can you talk me through the logistics for that move?
Yeah, look, there were 3 players in the end I'd got it down to. So it was the Tomahawk, obviously. I thought, with his run coming up, I took a look at his stats from round 19, and he's averaged about 165 from last 3 years. So I thought, is this a sign to bring in Tommy? So I was really keen with him playing North this week as well. Got an okay fixture coming. Then there was Bailey Dale, who's always been that safe option. I've been a big fan of Dale for a while now, and I'm normally a pretty safe player with my last trade. Normally when you use your last trade, you don't want to be bringing in some sort of a dickhead that's going to get suspended, get rubbed out, or get injured. Exactly someone like Jordan De Goey. But look, I thought at the end of the day, because my rank's around that 250 mark to 300 mark, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to go with someone who I think has a bit of a decent ceiling, someone that's been in good, consistent form. And I thought with Dale, he's sort of good for, an 85, 95 to 100, maybe average from here. But I thought with the De Goey, he's probably got the opportunity with that role to actually have a really, really big game if he manages to hit the scoreboard. He's been finding a heap of the ball. So just that midfield role and, 4 weeks of 100 plus, I thought, no, I'm going to look past the NDHP factor, try to focus more on the role. There's 4 weeks to go. I don't see him being moved out of that Collingwood midfield. Pendles is even gone now. I didn't know that last week, obviously, but obviously new news. I think that's another positive for him. But look, it was really hard not to get Hawkins. It was just at the end of the day, that key forward, mate, if I'm choosing between a key forward and then someone that can get 30 touches in the midfield and maybe kick a goal or two, then I picked the role, I think, more than anything. Hawkins had the scoring history, but I ended up going with the best role I thought that would work for Supercoach, which was De Goey, and recent form obviously played into it as well. So that was a method behind the madness, mate. A bit of a different one, probably not a selection or a type of selection that I traditionally make, but, one trade left, sort of up there in the rankings, not right up at the top, but, looking for a top 200 maybe if I'm lucky. So roll the dice a little bit, mate, and get this tosser in the side.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Look, I think I'm a bit against it. There's so much NDHP about this bloke. But last trade of the year, I can see why you would do it. But I still, can't really come to terms with it, I suppose, mate. What do you reckon of this one, Jords? Do you agree or disagree with this move? Because there's a time and place for each trade. And if you were to bring De Goey in at any point of the year, it would obviously be now. What are your thoughts of this move?
Yeah, it's a fascinating pick. I was probably a little bit slow. It's hard to look past the fact that he's De Goey. Whereas, injuries, on-field, role uncertainty. He's got a court case in like 2 weeks. So see how that goes. He does. Got back.
Does he actually?
He does.
What about the NDHP DR? I think you got a problem here. He's got some off-field dramas you got to assess.
Not only in the hands of the gods, but in the law as well for you now, DR, for the cover. But we'll see. But look, objectively looking at him, he takes a lot of marks around the ground. He runs out games okay, especially last week he did all right. He did have a bit of a missing patch, but the role is good. He's in the right age bracket. He clearly has the attributes. His history in the midfield, when he's been put in there briefly, it hasn't been great. He's always been better up forward. However, his form has been a little bit better over the past, I'm not sure, is it 6 weeks now? His fixture's not the worst either. So, given the role, given the form, it's hard to see him. It is hard to see him dropping off because, when you've got that role, and this is a role that he's wanted for a while and they've put him forward for a long time, I think the pick, it looks like it's going to work. It's still, there are other risks. Injury history especially is not the best. Especially like 4 weeks ago, I was thinking, I still didn't really want to do it because of the injury history, but now there's only 4 weeks to go. Chances are he plays 4 games instead of misses 1 from this point. So I think the pick is, it's a legitimate pick, and I completely understand the thinking behind it. And the role was there. He's in his prime. He's 24, 25, maybe 26. I'm not sure. So he's kind of in that right age bracket. And I think he trained midfield in the preseason, so it's not super new to him. Yeah. I hate to say it, but I think it's a reasonable pick with a decent ceiling.
Yeah, no, it's good he's got that role. And I do agree with that on where you've said that the risk is low at this time of the year. The same sort of justification to why I bought in Isaac Heaney. So, I think it can work. Like, he did pay overs for him, but in current form, like, he doesn't look like he's going to do anything wrong. So hopefully he can maintain this ceiling and dare I say it, be a candidate for our sides in 2022, because he will be fairly cheap. He did shit the bed quite a fair bit at the start of the season, so he's going to be one tempting option, but I don't know whether or not I'll go through with that. We'll wait and see when the time comes. But look, it is pretty rare that we all disagree with something because we're pretty much on the same terms. We live, breathe, die with Supercoach. That's why I'll talk about things our fans that may disagree with and that could tick them off. And this is our big call segment where we drop a one-liner that is going to or spark up a Barbie with the viewers. And I'll start with this one. I'll kick it off. My big call for this week is North Melbourne will not finish last. And that is quite a big call because in current form, they're looking pretty good. They're set to get that first draft pick. We've got the father-son stuff going on, but I'm pretty sure they're the same amount of points as Hawthorn, and I don't mind Hawthorn, but they like they're in a bit of trouble at the moment, and seems like they're going to be eyeing off Jason Horn quite a fair bit. What do you boys reckon of that one?
Yeah, well,
I
like the way North are playing at the moment. To be honest, I think Noble's got them playing really well. I really rate David Noble as well. What he did for Brisbane is so underrated. Unless you follow Brisbane really, really closely, Jords, you'd probably know he did a lot of great work over at the Crom as well, didn't he, Dave Noble? I'm a huge fan, mate. Yeah, how do you feel about Noble, mate?
Sorry, my mic just stopped up. Anyway, yeah, David Noble, huge loss for the Crows. Huge loss. We can see our football department last few years has been terrible. Had a complete clean out this year. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Noble's a big loss for both teams, I think. So, yeah, highly rated by us. Big loss.
Yeah, it'd be good for Hawthorn as well to get that first draft pick. They need a guy like Jason Horn, I think. He's a bad man in the sample. I think Jords might know a little bit more of the sample. I don't really follow it that much, but I did see him deck the shit out of Darcy Fogarty, which was really impressive because he's not a small bloke, that guy. And yeah, Hawthorn are missing Jack Gunston for the rest of the season, so it's going to be hard for them to make any sort of promise, which hurts me to say because I actually don't mind Hawthorn. I've always liked them as a team. But when you got big Suvalaki bag and 7 against Carlton, it makes you think maybe there's some belief at this footy club. And a statement that Jane Stevenson said during the week, even though I own him, it's one that I do disagree with a fair bit. But he reckons that they're a shot of finals next year. Bit ambitious, I thought that one, but they're definitely heading in the right direction where Hawthorn, well, I'm not sure what the whole go is with the Sam Mitchell, Alistair Clarkson saga. Hopefully that all works nicely, but at this point in time, for the rest of the season, doesn't look too good for them, I don't think, boys.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. Who knows who's going to even make the 8 this year, let alone win the spoon. So it's going to be a big 4 weeks coming up, Spills, for sure.
Yeah, I think Essendon are going to miss out on that one. I hope we make it, but with can we play Sydney? He's got a cracking record on us. If anyone owns him in Supercoach, a cheeky VC option because he will tear us apart. He always does, no matter what age, shape, or form he's in. But yeah, what's your big call this week, DR? What have you got for us?
Yeah, now it may be a bit of Brisbane supporter bias here, but I'm such a huge fan of this man. I'm talking about the rat, Zach Bailey. I tell you what, if you redo his draft, I reckon he's top 5. I reckon he's top 5 in that draft. We actually had the number 1 pick when we went Rayner in that draft, but I still think he's probably behind a Brayshaw, Norton as well. But I think I'd much rather Zach Bailey ahead of, and it may be a big call, Hunter Clark, Caulfield, the 2 St Kilda boys that they selected there. I think it's a given that he's well ahead of Paddy Dow. Where would Dow be selected in this draft now? I dare say nowhere near the top 10. It'd be one of those later second round picks. I think he's just been so poor, Paddy Dow. But I'm just such a huge fan of Zach Bailey. He's a real match winner. He kicks goals, hit the scoreboard. He's pretty reliable. Got that real burst of speed as well. Really reminds me a bit of Paddy Dangerfield when he bursts away from those packs. That initial sort of 4-5 step type stuff. So I just really rate this guy. I think he's an absolute star. And I think next year he'll really be pushing for that half forward All-Australian role. I think maybe a big call. but just such a huge fan of this, mate. I reckon he's top 5 his draft class.
Right,
That's
Dia, just
mate.
quickly, I want to ask you. I want to list some names here, and I know you got the Brisbane bias, and Bailey's fantastic this year. I think he's a chance for All Australian, to be honest, at least the squad. But I want to go through a few plays in this draft and say if he's better. You got to make yes or no. No fence sitting here. Is he better
All right.
over Andy Brayshaw,
No.
Adam Chera,
No.
Oh,
Aaron Norton?
No.
no.
I think he's better than everyone else. What about Rayner?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Surely.
it's a tough one. I think if you take this year into account, Rayner's obviously been on the sidelines, and I just think Bailey's development this year has just been almost second to none at Brisbane. I think he's almost our most improved player. Actually, Brandon Starcevic would probably have big claims on that as well. But I think given the fact that Bailey's had next year in the system to really prove himself and show really what he can do and show off some of his tools, and I think he's got some really explosive tools, I'd have him just ahead of Rayner at this stage, Jords. But I think Rayner's got the potential to really come back near that top 5. But given the fact he's had the year out and you've had other players such as your Norton, like you mentioned, Brayshaw's had another good year, then it's hard to sort of have Rayner still at that mark, I think. But a couple of years, maybe revisit it. And hopefully from a Brisbane supporter's point of view, he'll be close to that top 5 anyway, I think, mate. But yeah, I pretty much had Bailey after Chera, Brayshaw, Norton, and I think there was one other off the top of my head as well. So I think I had him 5th in that draft class, and he was pick 15. So it's only 10 spots, back from that. So it may not be a huge call, but I think certainly this year, particularly after the Collingwood game where he kicked the winning goal, that, Zach Bailey is certainly more well-known than what he has been in previous seasons, I think, getting a bit of more credit.
Yeah.
I think he even could be ahead of Chera at this point. Pretty close.
I was going to say that, but I thought it'd be a stupid call, but no, I don't mind that. Like, he's so underrated, Zach Bailey. Like, he can just do it all. He can play midfield and kick goals. Like, well, much more do you want from a player like him? And he's explosive as well. So, not to say it's going to turn out like a Danger or a Dusty, but like the potential's there. If there's any player at Brisbane that can be like that X Factor finals player, he might be your man in about probably at least 5 years. I feel like it's going to take him a while to really be that like A grade high ceiling, but he's going in the right direction. He's a superstar. Huge talent.
It's funny. I was actually spewing when we selected him because I was a big fan of Lockie Fogarty at the time, and I was really banking that we'd get him. It came to our pick 15. We said, yes, we're going to get this man. Then called out Zach Bailey. I'd never heard of the bloke, to be quite honest. So, wrapped that they end up going with Bailey in the end. We've made some really good selections, Brisbane, I think.
Yeah, great recruiting at that club. Jords, what was your big call for this week? What have you got for us?
I've put Supercoach to the side for a second. I have Geelong not making the grand final this year. At the very least, they won't win the flag. Reason is, I don't think they've actually beaten many of the top teams. I think the one they did was the Dogs, and that was over there and after the siren without Dunkley and Treloar. I'm not as sold on Geelong as others are. I know they're in really good form, but I don't trust a lot of their players in big games. I don't trust Danger in a big game. I don't trust their forward line outside of Hawkins in big games, although Jeremy Cameron would probably be fine. See how he goes. But, I don't know. I just don't trust Geelong. Although they're playing, I think the midfield's starting to lift a little bit. Tommy Stewart's been unreal back there, so they're a little bit reliant on him. So we'll see what happens, but I think I don't trust Geelong to beat. I don't trust them to beat the Dogs. I don't trust them to beat Melbourne, even in their form. Brisbane at home should beat them.
Yeah, we actually did. We played well. I think we beat them by about 40 points. I think it was probably our best game of the season against Geelong. But obviously, last couple, St Kilda and the Tigers didn't get up for that one. But I think it's a big call, but it's a decent call, George. I can certainly see where you're coming from with that. My tip's probably, I love the Dogs. It's hard to split them in Melbourne, but I just think that midfield star power. I know you've got Clary and you've got Track there, obviously, and Maxi Gawn, the best ruck in the competition, arguably. But that midfield, the doggies, when you got Baz that can't even fit in there, I think you're going pretty well. Trelaw's going to be coming back, Dunkley back. Oh, man, they're going to be a scary team. I think for the next, 5 years at least. They've got some stars coming through. Man, it's going to be fun being a doggy supporter, I think, in the near future.
Yeah, I think so too.
They look so good, the Dogs. And I think they've got the ability to roll with the 3 key forwards. I thought it would be a bit too hard with Jamaro Uhagen, but he looks, I don't know about you boys, but I reckon he looks the goods. I reckon he could have really good job security. Just watching him play, he doesn't get the most set shots, but when he does, the bloke just never misses. And he's only 18, 19, and he handles the pressure like that. He's got Bruce and Norton to compete with, but I don't know about you guys, but I reckon he stays in the team for the remainder of the season if he can keep up this form. What do you boys reckon of that one, just quickly?
Well, who else have they got? So they got Bruce and they got Norton.
Yep.
They play English up there as well when Steph's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Steph will hurt him. If Steph comes back,
okay,
I can't see him staying in the side there. But look, Keith's out as well. Does Shaki do a Liam Jones this year, maybe? Who knows? Because he looked actually all right there last week in the back line. Just quickly on Shaki, I know he's completely irrelevant, but what he needs to develop right is a bit of mongrel. He needs to crash some packs. He's just a bit too soft, Shaki. That was his trouble at Brisbane. I think that's always been his issue, is that he just needs a bit of prick in him, crash the packs, try to hurt people. He just doesn't seem like he's got that aggression that's needed to be, an elite key forward. I think if you look at most of the elite key forwards, they've all got that mongrel about them, and I think he just lacks that. So maybe this stint in the back line while Keith's out could be the making of him and almost save his career, I think, with Shaki.
Yeah.
With that, Dia, because I know you coach, I think, is it your son's team?
Yeah.
Can you teach that to, do kids either have it or they don't in terms of mongrel, or is it, how do you see that?
It's a really good question, mate, because it is something that's really, really hard to teach. We play the old school British Bulldogs and that sort of stuff. We try to rev them up in different ways, but you do see those kids that without saying a word naturally head over the ball and just dive in sort of head first and almost at their own risk sometimes. But then you get the other kids that more dance around the ball. They don't actually go down to pick it up. They almost wait for someone else to pick it up. They're a little bit scared about going for it. So I know with my 2 sons, for example, one's, a little bit timid. The other one's got absolute white line fever. And, we've raised them the same way. They've both played footy for ages. So, it's a good question, mate. It is actually really, really hard to teach. It is hard to teach. And I think it is a very natural attribute, to be quite honest. Yeah, good question though, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't mind that. Look, I reckon having you on the channel this week, Jords, is going to be huge for it. It's sort of dropped off a fair bit with Supercoach, but I think the viewers are definitely going to increase. But before we wrap it up, I just want to say a massive thank you for jumping on. It's been really good, and if you ever want to jump on again, buddy, just flick us a message because we're always happy to have you on the Swordplay podcast, mate. Before we wrap it up, what are you boys doing with your captaincies coming into round 21?
I'll let Jords start because I'm just going to copy him. We were talking pre-podcast, and I just went, yep, beautiful, Jords. I'm locking that in, mate. So I'm not going to take your credit, Jords. Who are we going with this week, bud?
I don't want to jinx it because I've had a good run with captains, but for me, I look at 3. I look at Steele, McRae or Bont, and then into Gawn is a little bit risky given his form, but given what we saw last week and his opposition and Luke Jackson's tailed off, I think it could be worth it because really what's Gawn disaster score is probably 100. It's what he's been going for the past 10 weeks anyway. So
yeah,
it still is really hard to pass up as well. So I think because it's McRae, because it's in the wet, I think I got to go McRae into Max Gawn. That's for me. But I really like Steele and Bont as VC. I wouldn't go Bont C just in case Schoenberg tags like he did to Parrish. But I think VC perfectly fine to go Bont. But yeah, for me, McRae, I got to stick to it now. I've pumped Gawn up, so I have to go for it now. So it's McRae into Max Gawn for me.
Yeah,
Just quickly, Jords, what's your threshold these days? Is it a different proposition week to week with carnage that's going on, or different players who they're coming up against? Have you got a basic rule when it comes to your vice captain? What score do you bank, or maybe what score do you take a bit of a punt on, or is it a week to week proposition for you, mate?
It's hard because it depends how I feel, which is not a good way to approach it. But sometimes it's like, oh, I'll take a 115, and then you look like an idiot because Grundy's gone 170, and then it's like you get greedy, you don't take a 120, and then your captain gets injured like Grundy this year. So it's just you can never get it right sometimes. So look, I always like the conservative way, and I often take like a 115 or 115 is kind of bad because we have that many players going over 120. Actually, I'll say probably 120.
I'm very much in agreement with that at the moment, mate. I suppose another thing you can always look at is what your captain's actually averaging for the season as a bit of a rough guide. But remember that there's hot patches, slow patches. So if you look at Hall's average, for example, if you look at over the last 9-10 weeks compared to the first half of the season, it's chalk and cheese. So I like those selections though, mate. So I'm basically looking very similar to Jords. I don't have Jack Steele, so I can't obviously select him, but probably for me it's McRae into Max Gawn. Spills, how about yourself, bud? You going with the Bont? You sticking fat with the Bont or not? Or are you going maybe away from him, the Showy tag?
Showy, he's going to run rings around Showy, I reckon. You can't tag the Bont. Like, before we look, Schoenberg, what a game he played last week. But who did he tag, mate? I mean, what did he? I actually can't remember who he
played
tagged.
On O'Meara. So
let's sort of let's try to see this one through. So, how big is O'Meara? What's the size of this guy? Like maybe just over 6 foot.
I'm not sure.
He must be pretty similar, are they?
Bont is taggable. As someone who started him last year and was averaging 100 for the first 2 months. 2 months it was. He did get tagged a lot. That's not to say he's learned how to do with it this year because we haven't really seen it.
No, I think the size is gonna affect Showy this week. And another thing I saw, I don't know whether this was last week or the week before, but I saw Bont line break in between like two guys who tried to tackle him, and he just weaved through him. And it just shows the strength of this guy. And I think he's learned how to deal with a tag, and that's why I reckon he's the clear favourite for the Brownlow. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen him have a poor game, like against North Melbourne, but he didn't actually get tagged. It was just a bit of luck. Didn't go near him. A few spilt balls, got the footy, couldn't dispose of it properly. So I haven't seen him get affected quite that badly this year. And I think that's what he's really added to his game, which is the difference between 2020 and 2021 Bontempelli. So I don't know. I think he shrugs it, but I'm happy to do this as a VC. So I'm going to be VCing Bontempelli for, who do I do that for? I'm not sure, because I do have, I'm different to you boys. I own both Bontempelli and Steele. I know Jords has Steele, and
I've got none.
You've got none there. Oh, I forgot about that.
Nah, bloody hell. Nah.
It rattles me because
I got Travis Boak though. I got Travis Boak. So
he's all right. He nearly won the Brownlow last year, mate. So that's not sure. How are you winning every single league when you don't have Bont and Steele? Really quite remarkable. Oh no, it's that forward line. You got Danger and Zorko. That's probably what would do it. That's a huge move. But yeah, no, mate. I'll probably go Bontempelli for Steele. But on what George said on Maxi Gawn, that's going to be really hard to pass up as well. I'll wait and see how it goes. I hope that Bontempelli just towers up so I don't have to deal with that problem. And an interesting conversation with our captaincy threshold. You guys say 120, 125. Mine varies between different weeks. If you had have asked me that question last week, I would have said probably 120. I would bank a 120 because those big scores were quite hard to go past. But in a week where Bontempelli's playing Adelaide and Gawn's playing Burgess and you got Steele, I think it could almost be 130 to 135. You want a good score this week, and you want to make sure that you take home at least a 130. So it just depends it's sort of like reading the room type of a situation. I know it's greedy, but you're expecting big things in certain weeks. Like last week, expectations were low, but they're a bit higher this week. It just changes, I reckon. I can't really say an exact number. On average, though, probably 125 rule, as you say, DR.
Yeah, I think around the mark. But look, either way, it's a risk. Whatever you do, it's a risk. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you just want to be on the winning end more than the opposite end, obviously, mate.
Yep, no doubt. This is the end of the podcast. Jords, before we go, once again, thank you so much for jumping on. It was an absolute pleasure. What do you reckon? Is there any feedback that you have for the podcast? I know you've got one of your own, the Supercoach Take. I'm pretty sure at least 90% of the viewers would have heard of that podcast, but just a quick shout out for you. You do a great job. Is there any advice that you could give to us? Because we're just the new kids on the block. We want to make this a really big podcast, but we're not really sure where to go with it from here. What would you advise, mate, that we do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Had a blast. Always good fun to talk to you boys. Look,
Yep.
You guys have your own established channels, so it's not like you're new, but it is, I guess, new podcast channel. So
Yeah.
the thing is the timing at the moment. It's just not the best time for high amount of viewers, just because of the stage of the season. No one has trades. Go hard in the preseason, especially the week before the preseason. That's when it really, really, really ramps up. I think my views started like doubling in the week leading up to round one. I was like, oh, geez. So definitely that week is like a golden period. I learned this year anyway. So definitely do that, I think. So, but yeah, I think the segment, like, it's Supercoach Take. We just wing it, really. At least you guys have a good structure going on, good themes going on. Something that can, what's the headline going to be or whatever, or rant or whatever. Like, people can look forward to a certain segment rather than just winging it. So I think that's very, very good. But yeah, just only advice at the moment, I think, is just timing next year in the preseason. So that'll give you a good foundation for the rest of the year. But other than that, what you guys do is very good. Very impressed. So
much appreciated, mate. And Jords, congratulations, mate. You're on the way to 4K as well with your subscribers, mate. So
huge,
the work
mate.
that you do, absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. From the Supercoach Take to the round reviews to the lessons that you've learned. Mate, every week I look forward to your content, and it makes us all better Supercoaches. So thanks very much for joining us, Legend. Really appreciate it as always, bud.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it so much.
Take it easy, fellas. Have a good one.